December 8th, 1980. That evening, John Lennon was shot and killed. I wasn't there that night, but the shockwaves of what happened have always felt very personal to me. You see, I went to school with the man who shot John Lennon. I remember him as a guy who wore concert t-shirts. My brother said he was always looking for attention, but he never got it. And looking back, it's surreal to think that someone I crossed paths with in my youth could be responsible for such a devastating act. It's a reminder that even the smallest connections can tie us to moments in history, both tragic and profound. Here's what I remember. It was one of the few times that my dad let me stay up to watch football on Monday night, and, well, I'll never forget this particular broadcast when I heard Howard Cosell say these words that is implanted in my mind forever.
Yes, we have to say it. Remember, this is just a football game, no matter who wins or loses. An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival.
Even though I heard those words from Cosell, I still couldn't possibly believe that he was dead. I remember going to school the next day and everybody was talking about it, and I was still in disbelief. I couldn't believe that John Lennon was dead, much less the man who shot him went to my high school. He was in my brother's class. I passed him in the hall countless number of times. I talked to him at lunch, and he shot John Lennon. And then I heard this.
Former Beatle John Lennon, who was 40, was shot and killed last night outside his luxury apartment in New York.
This evening, John Lennon arrived at the emergency room at the Roosevelt Hospital. He was dead at the time of his arrival.
Every human being, maybe as many as 200,000 who had gathered here to pay silent tribute to John Lennon, did exactly that.
Well, as I said, what can anyone say? It's a great tragedy, and it's just another evidence of what we have to try and stop happening in this world.
Then later I got to see fans gathering everywhere in complete disbelief outside the Dakota and all over the place. They felt just like I did. The tributes poured in from musicians, leaders, ordinary people whose lives were touched by John Lennon's words. Every year on December 8th, my heart sinks. I still can't believe it. Lennon's death marked the end of an era. I always hoped that the Beatles would get back together, and I'm sure they probably would have done something. But John's influence will never fade. His message of peace and love, it resonates just as strongly today, especially every time you hear Imagine or some other Beatles songs. So for me on December 8th, I try not to just remember the man that we lost, but the dream he left behind. I hope you feel like I do. I look forward to reading your comments in the comments section. I read every single comment. Thank you, Beatle fans. Thanks everyone for watching. And thank you, John, for imagining a better world.